Hello, this is Sabina at Cross Keys Crafts. I have subscribed at the moment to Creative Stamping magazine. There was an offer on for I think 5 or 6 issues for half price, and I decided to go for it. And when this one came, I wasn't quite sure about the stamps because these are butterflies and moths, and there's a hummingbird, but some of them are better. I don't really like creepy crawlies, and they're insects, so I wasn't quite sure about this. But then I saw Gemma from Gemma Lee Crafts, who was making a card with the bee. And I also saw another lady, I think her name is Jennifer, from Paper Ink Stamp, and she was making a butterfly card recently. So I actually got tempted to using these stamps, and OMG, I normally don't rave about stamps that come with crafting magazines, but these stamp absolutely beautifully. Because sometimes I find the silicone stamps that are a bit wobbly, but these were very crisp, and I'm really happy with how they turned out. So for these 2 cards, I'm making 2 cards today. I have chosen, as I said, the bee and the butterfly. I have already coloured these just with my alcohol markers. By the way, I use an alcohol proof ink for this one. Let me just find it for you and show you if I can. There we go. It's this one here. It's the Spectrum Now Finesse alcohol proof dye, because this one doesn't smear with alcohol markers. If you use the normal dye ink, just make sure it's properly dried. You can actually heat emboss with clear over it as well. I think that always works. So, and I just really randomly coloured it in. I didn't do any ink blending or any shading, and I just decided to go for this. The other thing I did is I partially stamped on some gold coloured vellum, and it's just normal vellum. I'm going to link to that below. It's a set of different colours, and all you need to do when you heat emboss on vellum is you need to put it either on a low setting. My Sizzix heat tool comes with 2 settings, or you need to move it around properly so you don't burn or warp the vellum. Otherwise that should work fine. And as you see, again it's a very crisp result with a stamp. I'm really pleased with that. If you see that later, this one's not as crisp because basically I had some residue on my stamp when I placed it onto the vellum, so I did a bit of double stamping here, but I'm not fussed about this. I didn't want to do it again because it was my last lot of this light blue vellum. I then fussy cut these wings here, and I coloured them in from the back. That's a nice thing you can do, is just colour it from the back, and you don't even have to be precise because the outline in the front is hiding it. So I basically have this, and I can attach this onto here. That's my idea, and then have a bit of movement but have the other colours peep out from underneath. I also have, and that's again inspired by Gemma, I have embossed this piece of cardstock here. By the way, I chose a warmish yellow. I don't know if it comes across on the on camera, because I decided to go with gold. I needed a warm yellow to go with the gold, otherwise it would have been too harsh. So, and I've got this embossing folder, and it also cuts out a few bits. This one I bought in Germany years ago, so I can't link to that, but I think that's really nice and gives a nice texture. And again, to tie in with the wings, I have just put some scrap of that vellum underneath the holes there, so that will actually tie in as well quite nicely. For this card, I have decided to give the bee some dimension, and I have just used my bone folder, and I have sort of curved the legs and the wings a bit, and that's by the way that's the reason I haven't really fussy cut this. I just cut it out. I didn't want it to be too flimsy. I have, by the way, I've stamped this on some hammered cardstock, and it's rather thick because I wanted it to be sturdy rather than be too flimsy. So what I wanted to do with this is I'm going to glue this on the card base. I have already, by the way, stamped this birthday wishes. That's from the stamp set in the magazine as well. And I want to prop this bee up on some foam in the middle. So it's got some dimension there, but I don't want to glue all these bits down. I want them to sit rather loosely. I might put a bit of glue on the side there. And then I'm going to attach the vellum bit, but I only want to attach it in the middle. And the secret to having some almost hidden glue behind vellum is just to use some clear tape. So I'm going to use my red tape, and I will just use it on the rose there, and maybe a bit on that bit here. So basically it will sit there, but because the bee is curved, it will basically flapping there, and I think that might give some nice interesting focus on the card. So I'm going to glue these down, and I'm going to speed this up a bit. Okay, that's my first card finished. So you saw me put some foam tabs on the back there. I just put them in the middle, and because it's sturdy cardstock, these don't need to be glued down at all. They sit very nicely. And as you can see, there is some movement in the wings there, which are only glued, pardon me, glued down there. And I also, before I glued this down, I made sure that the sentiment sits in a nice place and I've got enough space there. And I also like the idea that the bee is not covering these bits here. And I just put these on foam tabs as well. And you saw me mark with a pencil just how far I want to go. So I knew how many foam pads I had to put on the back, and also where to cut it down. And you just saw me from behind just cut it down with my scissors, and that's just neat enough. So yeah, I'm really pleased with the first card. So for the second card, I again have already coloured in my butterfly, but this time I didn't fussy cut it, I just left it on the cardstock. I did stamp it on the same piece of cardstock as the bee, so in hindsight I would have preferred to have a bit more space around it. But I basically cut it to size. I also cut just a mat to get to the 6x4 cardstock, and it has got a bit more of an edge on either side because that was the size of the cardstock I used originally. And I also have stamped the sentiment, let your dreams be your wings. Again, that's from that stamp set, and I've shown you this. I have also heat embossed the stamp onto this blue vellum, and I already have adhered a bit of the red tape in the middle, because again, for my idea for this card is to have this a bit loose, but I want to prop these wings up on the outside here, and I want to hide these pads and put underneath the sentiment. So first thing I'm going to do is glue this down on here, and then again I'm going to speed up my whole gluing process. Okay, so I'm just measuring now where I put these foam pads. So if I want to move the sentiment out here, but I might actually move it out here, I can only put a foam tab underneath the corner there, but I can be generous underneath here. And then I also need to prop the foam tab up on this side here to be on the same level as the other bits. So I'll just have a look how I do that. You could also see I always cut these to size whilst they're on the release paper. That is so much easier. So I'll just have a little piece just underneath here. And you can see that already elevates the wing here. I'll show you in a moment how that looks. So I'll have a generous piece there. Oh, my nail polish has come off with it. Not worried about it because it will be hidden by the sentiment. And now all that's left to do is sort of have a look where else I need to put some foam tape. So I'll put some there in the middle and some on the end here, or maybe the whole lot there, and then this just can go down on it. And I'm going to put some glue on the top here and on the top there to hold the sentiment in place. There we go. So that's my second card. Contemplating whether I should just glue these down just a little bit, but no, I think that's fine as it is, especially when they go in the post, because they actually are a bit static. By the way, that's what I've got on the table I wanted to show you. My original thought was to curve these a bit, and I did that with my bone folder as I did with a bee. But this is what happens if you're not careful. I actually tore this apart. I thought about using it, but then I dismissed it. So be careful if you try to curve these. I could actually, if I wanted to, because I've got a bit of bulk, just glue the corners down. I think that might actually look quite nice. I think I'll do that quickly. And again, I will speed it up for you. Okay, I really like this. So as you could see, I just put my finger underneath to give it some dimension, and I just glued the tips down. With this one, I couldn't really put my finger underneath because obviously it's glued down there, but I gave it a bit of dimension. So it's not as loose as the wings on the bee, and the recipient can actually peep underneath, and I quite like the colour that shines through as well. So yeah, two actually fairly quick cards. Obviously I had prepared a few bits, but I think these make really nice use of the stamps from that magazine, and as I said, they're amazing. They're stamped really crisp. So yeah, very pleased with these. If you like these cards, you might want to give me a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more of what I'm creating, you might want to subscribe to my channel. I'd be very happy about that, and I'll see you soon.